The American priest, Father Walter Ciszek, spent many years in isolation in the Soviet Union's notorious Lubyanka prison, held prisoner for being a priest. And in that time of extreme isolation, subject to psychological tortures, Father Ciszek developed a daily routine that helped him in the midst of this isolation. Many of us might be isolated today, especially because of the onslaught of the coronavirus or the COVID-19. We might find ourselves practicing social distancing and even sometimes isolated in our families under self-imposed isolation or even quarantine. If this is the case for you now, I'm offering some spiritual helps, and especially this notion of establishing a daily routine to help us to stay healthy and also to stay spiritually healthy and wise in the midst of this crisis. Father Walter Ciszek developed something called an orarium. Orarium is just a fancy Latin name for your daily routine, but a daily routine involving God. So when we're with our families in our times of isolation, it's important to set a daily routine. That daily routine should include, first and foremost, family prayer together. Many parts of the country now are in a situation where people cannot attend public mass. If that's the case for you, I sincerely suggest that you and your family come together every day to read the readings for the lectionary for the day that would be read at the priest's mass, who would be celebrating that mass too, but also to focus in on making a spiritual communion. And if you look on our website, you will find many resources for making these spiritual communions. To be united with our Lord, especially, and to invite him into our hearts in a very real way, and to also long for the time when we can get back to having Mass together as the Church of Christ. In addition to this, brothers and sisters, I recommend time that you as a family gather every day to pray, especially the Most Holy Rosary. In the Rosary, we have a prayer we can focus on the mysteries of the Lord, the life of our Blessed Mother and our Lord together, and on focusing on the mystery of the passion and death of our Lord Jesus Christ, and upon the mystery of the Incarnation. We can keep Christ always in our minds, and that gospel always close to our hearts and in our lips, even when we feel isolated. Our Blessed Mother will always take us and bring us right back to her Son, because every time we hold on to Mary, we hold on to Christ. In addition to this, brothers and sisters, we need to make scheduled times to have meals with our families. It's important that as our Lord supped with his disciples at that Last Supper, that we do the same thing, that we eat with our families even in difficult times. And are they able to turn off our technology, turn off our phones, turn off the TV, and be with each other. In addition to this, we need fun times when we can sort of just blow off steam. So maybe watching a good comedy together, or even playing some games together, important part of our day. The need for exercise is also vitally important, especially if we feel cooped up in our homes. If we're able to go outside safely, we should, and take walks in the park, go exercise, and do it with our family if we think that's important. Finally, we also need times to not only engage each other, but also to kind of tune out a little bit sometimes, especially to the prevalence of the media in our lives. Now, what am I saying? I'm not saying to ignore information. I'm not saying to ignore government regulations. I'm not saying to ignore the news. Information is important. But when we're relentlessly refreshing our Twitter feeds, when we're constantly going to our news sources, when we're constantly looking at what is the latest update that I could possibly get, the anxiety level in our hearts can reemerge and it can rise again. So maybe even to schedule a time every day that I will look at the news, and then to shut that off. To shut that off and saying, Lord, help me to detach from that for today and to be present to my family and friends. Brothers and sisters, in this age of isolation, social distancing, let us turn towards each other. In this way, we can kind of create almost small monastic communities within our own families. And in the domestic church, be able to come together for peace, for lowering of our anxiety, and of course, to welcome our Lord into our hearts. May this be for this time, especially in crisis, but also for all times, that we might learn how to become the saints we are called to be by the grace of God. Brothers and sisters, peace be with you.